The Florida Panthers got 3 out of 4 points on their start to their Eastern Canadian road trip, but should it have been 4? We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, November 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off your first purchase. So the Florida Panthers get 3 out of 4 points in Eastern Canada to start their road trip. And like we spoke about on Monday's show, the Panthers are very comfortable on the road due to their experience from last year's playoff run, and it really showed throughout these first 2 games of this Eastern Canadian road trip. But it is a Wednesday, which means it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. Jacob Winans is back to discuss the 5-0 victory over the Ottawa Senators and the 2-1 shootout loss that the Florida Panthers had last night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But first, we're going to start with the first game of this 3-game Eastern Canadian road trip with the 5-0 victory, and welcoming back Jacob Winans. Jacob, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Honestly, the start to the trip, it's been a really weird couple of games, but getting 3 out of 4 points is something you can't really complain about. Big picture, so I'm happy with that. The Ottawa game, I think we've seen 2 games now in a row where we've seen something that we probably haven't really seen before. The Ottawa game was definitely an interesting one. I've never heard an official make a call giving every player on the ice a misconduct and injecting them. I thought Anthony Stolarz on the bench with a regular stick was probably my favorite shot of the season. I would have, given the blowout, I would have killed to see him go out and take a shift as a forward. That would have been hilarious. But I think the Ottawa game was pretty much perfect Panthers hockey. That's exactly how they want to play. And aside from all the rough stuff and the penalties and the extracurriculars in that one, I think the Panthers really kept their composure, and that's exactly how they looked in the playoffs, and I think that's a recipe for winning long term.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about that. And Anthony Stolarz being in the middle of the bench and hoping to get him in at forward. It's not like the same situation in baseball where you're having a position player come in to pitch during a 10-0 blowout. Not quite that same situation for in this sport as well. But even Nico Mikkola was giving Paul Maurice a look. Is like, hey, can I get this power play opportunity towards the end of the game, giving him some power play chances and all. So that was a little bit of a look on the bench. And then the Senators feed, zooming in the camera on the Tkachuk's grandmother as well. And even PTI, pardon the interruption, on ESPN 2 hours before the Leafs game, they covered that part as far as that. So looks like that the sport of hockey is definitely growing as far as not only in South Florida, but nationwide as well. But it's funny because when you think about the game is itself, Panthers dominated this one. The Senators look lifeless as well in this one. We spoke about how they say that they're playing for DJ Smith, but man, the way the Senators were standing still, not extending their reaches for pucks as well. The Panthers had their way as far as moving the puck into the offensive zone, and even with their power plays, their first 3 power play plays that they got, they scored 2 of them by Sam Reinhart, 2 of them by Sam Bennett, 1 of them. And this is the encouraging thing about the Florida Panthers. Now that they're healthy, they're back in their natural positions on the power play. Tkachuk is down low to get a quick feed to Sam Reinhart in the bumper, which is what we like to see, what the power play is supposed to look like. And thankfully, a mishandling of the puck by Korpisalo, even though Korpisalo had a great game. 5 goals does not tell the story about how Korpisalo played, but mishandle. Sam Reinhart scores on the wraparound. Also, they score on after from Sam Bennett backhand after a review from DJ Smith, and they scored to make it 3-0. But 6 for 6 on the PK. Lots of penalty minutes. 83 for the Panthers. They had 78 in their April 6th matchup against the Ottawa Senators. So this isn't new when it comes to the Florida Panthers and the Ottawa Senators. The Tkachuk brothers do have a factor in it as far as two guys related. They're barking with each other across the bench. They have that rule of no fighting. But right when the guys were going into the locker room, going into the second period, they were barking at each other, but still that rule of no fighting. That's a mother's rule by them. And then the can of worms started to open as far as that. Hamonic goes after Matthew Tkachuk. Then on a breakaway from Timmy Stützle after coming out of the box, gives an extra whack to Sergei Bobrovsky. Dmitry Kulikov doesn't like it. Everybody on the ice is assessed a 10-minute misconduct. And that was a combination of the fourth line, Dmitry Kulikov, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And then even the broadcast said, OEL didn't even do anything as well there. So it's just so funny how all that transpired. But credit to the referees. They cooled the game down to a level and prevented it from getting worse, because 7-2, let's flash back to April 6th of last year. The Ottawa Senators had 56 shots on goal on Alex Lyon, and they still only scored 2, while the Panthers scored 7 back in April. And we all know what happened there. Brady Tkachuk gets a misconduct, ends up in the press box with his dad as well. And then this was a big carryover and all. And lots of milestones on the night too. Barkov with his 400th assist, 650th point, 192 power play points. Sergei Bobrovsky, 40th shutout, and 370th win, the fastest goalie ever to do it. In this age of the NHL, you're not starting as much as you did back in the day. So to get to Brodor's record, it's likely not gonna happen for him at 35 years old. But still, the fastest as far as games just goes to show Sergei Bobrovsky's resume as a goaltender throughout his career. So just incredible game from the Panthers. In full 60-minute effort, and the most important thing is when they went on the PK 6 for 6. That's an encouraging sign for this team.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from the Ottawa game was definitely special teams. The 3 for 3 start on the power play is huge. You'd like to see them capitalize on the 5-minute. We're now 0 for 2 on the season on 5-minute major power plays, but that's kind of a minor point at that point in the game. It's not like you're really pressing for a goal. I think they handled themselves well in the face of some of the dirty stuff, the cheap stuff after whistles. You didn't see the Panthers taking a lot of the extra penalties. You saw them take penalties where they were going with someone from Ottawa. It was a lot of coinciding calls. I think Tkachuk handled himself well after getting attacked by McEwen, kept his composure there. And really making them pay on the power play when Ottawa would wind up in the box. And this is a team that goes to the box for a lot of stupid stuff. The Panthers really made them pay with goals, starting 3 for 3 on the power play, and then the penalty kill was fantastic as well. And they have been for a while now. They've really kind of found groupings and pairs that work on the penalty kill, and then having a healthy defense again is a big part of that. So I think. With special teams coming alive, I think they're in a really good spot because we already know how they play at 5-on-5, and they've kind of been really consistent at even strength. So getting that special teams production now on both sides is really going to push them over the top. So I was definitely encouraged with special teams against Ottawa for sure.
And before that 3 for 3 start on Monday, they were 1 for 17 on their past 17 power plays there. So definitely a great start for the Panthers. And also one thing for the Panthers is who were in the faces of the Senators even before all the 10-minute misconducts. It was the fourth line getting in their heads as well. So it was the we're gonna frustrate you type of line. We've talked about Yona Gadjovic going for fighting and bringing that toughness. Ryan Lomberg in between whistles as well. So that was a game where it was escalated because of the fourth line and doing their job of getting into their heads as well. So I want to give a big shout out to the fourth line as well for the Florida Panthers as well for frustrating the opposition and all. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more of the game between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs from Scotiabank Arena, where the Florida Panthers did lose 2-1, but got a point in the game. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, and LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, November 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers have started great on this 3-game road trip in Eastern Canada. So far, getting 3 out of the 4 points on the road trip. And man, what an incredible start for the Florida Panthers, going on the second end of a back-to-back. Surprised that they went with the goalie rotation that they did, but got to give a lot of credit to the Florida Panthers. They dominated really possession from the start. It was for the Panthers. They were keeping the top guys at bay really for this one. I mean, we spoke about the playoff series where you don't allow a goal by Austin Matthews and John Tavares. But then even in this one, William Nylander starts the first 17 games with a point, and now he's currently on a 3-game pointless streak, where the Leafs are 1-1-1 in that stretch. But they also eliminated the Austin Matthews as far as giving him the time and space. The top line was dominant once again. The fourth line was great as well. Just 44 minutes and 56 seconds were spent at 5-on-5, where the Panthers had the majority of the shot attempts, 64-36. And Stolarz stood strong, man. Close calls with William Nylander hitting the post twice in a sequence, but still, you count your lucky stars there. And then it was the bottom guys for both teams scoring. Kevin Stenlund gets a feed from Ryan Lomberg, and then he scores on Joseph Woll. And then just one itty bitty mistake at the blue line. Dmitry Kulikov mishandles the puck, and then Noah Gregor goes for a breakaway and then beats Anthony Stolarz blocker side. But then even after that first goal by the Panthers, they got the last 9 shots on goal of the period on the first. So just a very comfortable situation that the Panthers find themselves in. It just goes to show, I know I'm repeating the same point, Jacob, but it goes back to what their playoff run was and being comfortable in the uncomfortable when going into a place like Scotiabank Arena. And I know it's a big game. It's a place where you eliminated the Toronto Maple Leafs in 5 games last season, but just the comfort level of the Panthers and also the extracurricular stuff as well, with Max Domi getting a double minor, and then teasing Sam Bennett about that whole having hair as well. I know the fight was later in the game as well, but once again, consistently getting into the heads of the opposition. And this time it was Max Domi for the Toronto Maple Leafs on this one. And it was the second line that was creating that frustration for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So What'd you think about this this one as far as prior to the shootout? We'll discuss the shootout in segment number 3.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a perfect road playoff game. Anytime you play the Maple Leafs, and if their only goal is coming from Noah Gregor on the fourth line, and then even in the shootout, the only goal comes the second goal, the game-winning goal, comes from Noah Gregor from the fourth line as well. Anytime you can hold Toronto's elite forward group to no goals and no points outside of a fluky missed bounce at the blue line that Noah Gregor scores, I think you're doing pretty okay defensively, and I think goaltending is in a good spot. The Panthers play the Maple Leafs on the second night of a back-to-back with a backup goalie and hold them to 1 goal through regulation and overtime. In the playoffs, there are no shootouts. So that's exactly how you'd like the Panthers to play when the games are more important in the postseason. That's exactly how they played the Leafs in last year's postseason. So I think it was a perfect road playoff style game that the Panthers played. I think maybe a little bit better finishing luck. Maybe our big guns could finish a little better, score on the power play on some of those opportunities. It's something that they're going to have to address in big games against teams that are above 500. They haven't really performed that well against teams that are in playoff positions right now, but it's not for lack of effort, and it's not for lack of having the right system for winning those games. This game, it could have gone either way, but I think the Panthers really dealt with a lot of adversity. Again, kept their composure, didn't take a lot of the stupid penalties, and like you said, got in the heads of some of the opponents and baited them into taking some of the dumb ones. We've seen Max Domi be a complete idiot against the Panthers before. If you've been watching long enough, you remember his ridiculous attack on Aaron Ekblad in the preseason a few years back, and then later in that season, just completely went unhinged and attacked Evgeny Dadonov, thinking he did something dirty that season, which I wish Evgeny Dadonov had been a dirty player, because he wasn't exactly the most physical guy. But we've seen it before from Max Domi, and he did it again. Sam Bennett rightfully took that fight later in the game, kind of annihilated him in that one. And then I don't really understand the Max Domi chirp about having hair. I mean, you just got abused in front of your home crowd, and then you get up talking about how Sam Bennett is bald. I don't know. That was weird. And also, his dad isn't exactly great in the hair department, so that's coming for him too. That aside, I think Sam Bennett played a great game. I think he looked really good, like he did in the playoffs this past season. I think the physicality was there, just a little bit better finishing luck. And again, playoffs, there are no shootouts, so I'm comfortable with how the Panthers played that game. And I think a lot of the calls they dealt with were similar to what they dealt with last year in the regular season against Toronto. It's no secret, officiating is different in regular season than it is in the playoffs, and Toronto kind of they get a lot of opportunities on the power play during the regular season that they won't necessarily get in the playoffs when the calls get a little bit tighter. So I think the Panthers are doing just fine. Toronto's still not a team that really scares me. The games are going to be close. They're going to be intense. They're going to be physical, but that's not a team that really I feel like beats us over the top too much when it comes to a playoff style game. I'm comfortable with how they played, especially on the second night of a back-to-back.
Yeah, and especially because the Toronto Maple Leafs, one thing that they struggle with in this one was breaking out of their zone. Man, the Panthers had much of their way when it came to the neutral zone and also generating speed as well. When the Toronto Maple Leafs had like an errant pass on a breakout as well, then that's what really kept the Panthers from even going down in this game to begin with, even before they eventually lost this one as well. Anton Lundell played well as well, driving play, creating 6 shots on goal on the night as well. And the top line really keeping the superstars of the Toronto Maple Leafs at bay. The Barkov, Evan Rodrigues, reuniting Evan Rodrigues there with the top line recently for the Panthers, and Sam Reinhart there. Anthony Stolarz stops all 7 power play shots that he faced as well. He's 3-1-1 with a 1.99 GAA and 929. Yeah, I know it's a small sample size, but really got to be encouraged with the goalie department for the Florida Panthers, especially now that Spencer Knight is back after his injury with the Charlotte Checkers. That's also a little bit of a Checkers update as well. Spencer Knight is playing again, so the shape of the department is gotta love it. And even with the situation where Noah Gregor, man, he was everywhere in this game, even on that double minor by Gadjovic, where he fell into his stick. Yeah, I know you have to be in control of your stick, but what do you do when someone is falling into the stick like that as well? And all. And thankfully, the Panthers did benefit from too many. I believe it was a too many men
Yep, it
call
was.
on the Leafs,
Mhm.
and having that and 3-on-3. That 3-on-3 from last night is what 3-on-3 should always look like. You didn't really have a resetting back into the neutral zone as well. Panthers got 4 shots on goal, but what happened in that shootout, as far as continuously on the attack, that's what 3-on-3 hockey should be and should have been when first put in theory.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more games decided by it. I think when you have the 3-on-3 overtime and there's the constant resets and just holding on to possession and looking for almost like a 3-man weave type of play, it really eats up the clock, and then you end up in shootouts that no one really enjoys. So I think I like the way it was played. I think that's how it was intended to be played, and I'd like to see more games decided that way. But again, even in the 3-on-3 and even the brief 4-on-4 in overtime before when guys were out of the box before we got a whistle, I don't think either team really played passive. I think it was kind of full attack, and we'll see who wins this. Almost reminded me of like an MMA fight when there's two competitors in the cage and they're just throwing bombs at each other and see who's left standing. I think the Panthers and Leafs really took it to each other in that overtime. The goalies stood strong, the defense stood strong, but that's the way the overtime is supposed to look. I thought it was exciting, and it's a shame that it wasn't decided in overtime. I think that game would have benefited from an overtime finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then going into the shootout, I was thinking, even before anything happened, I was thinking, okay, shootout is luck a lot of the time, and whoever got that extra point can't be too angry about it, right? Well, there was a little bit of controversy at the end of that one where the Panthers thought they won, but ended up not getting that extra point, not getting 4 out of 4, and we are going to discuss that and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets on all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All in prices to show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets with 2 seconds and 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, November 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So 3 out of 4 points. You're happy a lot of the time if you are a Florida Panthers fan. And honestly, if we're looking at the macro for the Panthers and thinking about where the Panthers, as far as trends wise, in one area, we don't, Jacob, as far as shootouts, I never write in my notes ever about shootout results, who does what, moves. I know in NHL circles, it's a big conversation about Evgeny Kuznetsov and his slow, very, very slow shootout move and all. but I don't care for it. That's the thing. I really don't care for the shootout. So if because of luck, there's a goalie could play a great game and then come out short in a shootout. That does not say what happens in the first 65 minutes of the game. But there was a little bit of controversy for the Panthers. They thought they won, and when Evan Rodrigues goes to the left pad of Joseph Woll, hits the pad, back to Evan Rodrigues' stick in one motion, mind you, and then goes into the net. Here's the thing. When you are watching a regular game of hockey and you see a breakaway, is that a goal in actual hockey? Yes. But in a shootout, it's not. You have to have one consecutive motion. However, if you change the rule where you allow a rebound opportunity and then they score, you're kind of opening up a can of worms as far as the possibilities of what could happen after. So I get the nature of the rule. But why is it that something that is not ruled, that is a rule that can allow in the 65 minutes of the game, why you wonder why that's not a thing. And also it should be an exception if Erod is not doing it in two motions. His momentum is going forward. He's not taking an extra whack at Woll. And how about Woll's rebound control? Can we make an exception for that? And I'm not arguing the fact that it touched his stick twice. It did. It did. If you see the replay, you can't argue that. But and by rule, that is a double tap. But we don't have to like the rule. We don't have to. But again, it can open a can of worms if you decide to change the rule just for this. And Paul Maurice speaking to the media, he was trying so hard not to call out the officials, saying it was a great game, loved the penalty kill and all, and really tried hard not to say anything, and even had a soft F-bomb too in his media availability. So your thoughts, sir, on the 4 points that wasn't for the Panthers?
To be completely honest with you, after Evan Rodrigues scored, I turned it off, and then I checked my phone, and I see a message in our group chat from Joey Gonzi from the Hockey Writers, and he says, "I'm speechless," and I'm like, "Oh boy, I don't know what's happening," but I turned it back on, and just in time to see Noah Gregor score, which. I assumed everyone was already leaving the building, so it was
half the team was in the locker room.
Definitely haven't seen that one before, but it's frustrating that the rule by rule, it's not a goal by rule. It's just the rule makes no sense to me because it's supposed to be a simulated breakaway, and on a breakaway, if you shoot the puck and it bounces back straight onto your stick, and without shooting it again, it just bounces off your stick and goes in. There's no way in real hockey that's not a goal. And there's issues with this because we can discuss, like you said, rebound control. If a puck launches off Joseph Woll's pads and bounces off his knee and goes in, or it takes a funny hop off of any part of the player's body after he shoots, that's not a shooting motion. That's not. I mean, where do we draw the line here? And I don't understand. I don't understand why there's not an exception. I know it's a rare play. It doesn't happen often. Usually, the fact that it happened last night and it's getting all this attention is because it's very uncommon. It's not like in soccer where on a penalty shot in a game you're allowed to charge after the rebound right after you shoot it. And it's kind of a weird set of rules when it comes to the shootout, and I think that's why I don't really think it has a place in the game. I don't think there should be ties. I am strongly against having ties. I think having a tie, when you go to a game, you go to the game to see someone win the game, whether that's your team or not. I don't think there should be ties, but I think continuous overtime, or even if you have to, there are some funky rules in certain minor leagues and junior leagues where if 3-on-3 doesn't settle it, you drop to 2-on-2. I'd even be okay with that instead of having ties or a shootout. But I just think it's a terrible way to decide games, especially a game like that where it's tight checking. It's a playoff style game, and you take a win from a team off of really a technicality that has nothing to do with hockey. I think it's a frustrating way for that to end. And I think personally, I think if that call's made right away, I think the Panthers probably still win that because Anthony Stolarz is in a groove. He wasn't really getting beaten by anything in that shootout, but when he thinks it's over and he leaves the ice and then has to come back on and make a save, that's a lot to ask. So I think really unfortunate way for it to end. I think Evan Rodrigues, I loved his move. The edge work was pretty crazy on that, and it's a tough break, but yeah, when it comes to the shootout, we've seen goals disallowed for the slightest, like losing the puck or the puck goes slightly sideways instead of continuing forward. Things that in real hockey, it's non-factors. And this is after we've seen things like the spinorama get removed, and there's just too many things with the shootout that you're taking away the ability to play real hockey with it, and it becomes a luck competition. And I don't think that's a good way to end games, especially a game like we saw last night.
And even Paul Maurice said that he doesn't put too much stock in a shootout when it comes to evaluating a team because it doesn't happen often. I mean, the Panthers only have 2 OTLs on the season as well, so not much to put stock into it. But thankfully, they are discussing changes to 3-on-3 overtime, maybe a shot clock, maybe not a rule that prevents guys from resetting in the neutral zone. And I've been wanting this point system for a while, and I think a lot of fans are hoping for three points in regulation, 2 for an overtime win, 1 for an overtime loss, and 0 for a regulation loss. That would make late games in the last 10 games of the season more of an emphasis to try to win it in regulation, because you'll need the 3 points, no more, no less. So it's not teams playing for the tie or teams being conservative towards the end. If you need maybe like 2 points and you need just an overtime win, or if you need just 1, you're possessing the puck and keeping it behind your net because it's game 82 and that's all you need. But in the first,
Can you and I want to say I love that idea because can you imagine late season, a team needs 3 points. It could be a tie game, and you could be a tie game late in the season, but you need 3 points, so you're pulling the goalie in a tie game. I think there'd be a lot of eyes on that. That'd be really interesting. That'd be cool to watch. So it almost reminds me of like in soccer when you have an aggregate score or something like that, and regardless of you may have a tie game, but you need 1 goal to advance, something like that. I think that could set up some really interesting scenarios late season where it could be a tie game or something like that, and you're still having to pull a goalie, press for offense because you need those points. I really love that idea.
And make game 82 just like the NFL, all division games too. So
Yep.
So that'll be a cool factor in game 82, and maybe stagger the start times too. Just like Major League Baseball has adjusted to it. Now game 162 in baseball, all of them are 3:00 starts. I know it conflicts with football for the first weekend of October, but
yeah, give me a new point system and frozen frenzy for game 82, and I think that's hockey heaven right there.
I would love more. Yes. More John Butchercross and Kevin Weeks on my feed, please, as far as game 82. So some ideas to set that I hope the commissioner's office is looking at when hopefully they come across this podcast and they'll hear our awesome ideas as far as that. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers get 3 out of 4 points with still an opportunity to get 5 out of 6 as they visit Montreal on Thursday night. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. We'll definitely be there as we watch the Panthers and the Canadians, and some old friends with the Canadians, some former Panthers on that team. So that should be a good one.
Awesome, my friend. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week to preview the Panthers versus the Dallas Stars, a nationally televised game, by the way. So I will see you next Wednesday as we preview that, my friend.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
And if you like what you're hearing, Please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.